Parias, also named as Nakare-1011c, was a terraformed world far into a possible future, transformed by humans as a gargantuan hunting reserve in an unstable age of space exploration. After seeding the world with quite a few game species, mostly from North America, the planet was promptly abandoned during an interplanetary period of chaos and warfare, with humanity never returning to the Nakare system ever again. Humans may have never returned to the world they abandoned, but the many species of plants and animals humanity left behind among the stars have expanded to fill the niches of a new world. Welcome to Parias, an abandoned world. Last episode, we left off at the Savanna of Isolation, a tropical grassland with a host of endemic and migratory animals that have had to make unique adaptations to a harsh, hot environment. Animals had to evolve for a place with low plant diversity and loads of open space. In this episode, we examined the tropical rainforest found on the northern coast of Lucindo. This environment receives the most rainfall on the entire continent and is one of the major rainforest regions on the entire planet. This region has been tropical ever since Parias was first seeded millions of years ago, changing little from the first days of humanity's departure. This jungle along the blue Lapis Coast has the opposite problem for animals compared to the savanna, having a massive diversity of plants and very high amounts of cover. On the contrary, the environment is very, very wet, and there isn't a lot of room for large creatures to roam freely. Rainforests are known for their incredible amounts of diversity, and here is no exception. This episode will only cover a small portion of the organisms, great and small, that call this jungle their home. Without further ado, let us begin this journey together. Skyscraper trees have been found across the Savanna of Isolation in places with enough water to support them, but in the Lapis Coast rainforest, they are found in truly gargantuan numbers and scale. Whilst the savanna variant of this species is massive when standing alone on the flat grasslands, they are actually even taller and thicker in the rainforest. Rainforest skyscraper trees are the descendants of sequoias that adapted for a tropical coastal environment, using their ancestral adult size to capitalize on the lack of other tall trees in the northern part of the Lucindan continent. Skyscraper trees are unique in their reproductive strategies, especially in a place where fires are hard to start and maintain due to large amounts of rainfall. Pine cones actually start to germinate on the parent tree up in the branches, and when they are large enough and have developed enough needles, they are either dropped to the forest floor or blown elsewhere by a storm. This strategy, more often than not, ends with the sapling being outcompeted the moment it hits the ground, but enough survive to continue the survival of the species. Like the ancestor of the skyscraper tree, they can live for many hundreds of years, which gives them more than enough time to have at least one of their offspring surviving and replacing the parent tree. Deer moss is a comparatively diminutive species, but nevertheless has a fascinating strategy to survive. This small plant is mixotrophic. They can sustain themselves off of sunlight, but they are most commonly found on the forest floor, where sunlight is scarce and nutrients from the soil are poor. To supplement what they might lack from photosynthesis, they've evolved a root-like organ that siphons living materials from fungi, other plants, and even decaying organic material from animals. This strategy has allowed for the deer moss to be common across the jungle and is a keystone species for folivorous herbivores. For a leafy plant, the moss is high in nutrients and is readily available. Rosevine has adapted into a semi-epiphytic niche. They have broad leaves that are adapted to take in as much sunlight as possible. Their leaves safe from high winds on the forest floor due to extensive tree cover. These roses still have thorns, and they will use them to pierce the plants around them to keep them rooted in the tree that they are found in. They also will siphon nutrients off of trees, their favorite species being skyscraper trees. Their flowers will remain a vibrant red, not changing much in the time that has passed since being left behind by humans. Rose vines can grow on their own without the assistance of trees, their thorns smaller and primarily pointed towards the ground to keep them in place. Because of how durable and adaptable these roses are, even within the same species, they have become a diverse clade of plants in the region and make up a lot of the ground floor of the forest. Giant birdflower is another epiphytic plant that primarily can be found in the upper branches of trees. They only bloom once in their 20-year lifespan, in which they grow flowers that are larger than the rest of the plant, investing all their nutrients into a single bloom. Populations and subspecies of this plant respond to certain environmental cues to start the blooming process, which becomes a boundless era of plenty for pollinator species within the ecosystem. Because of their massive size, they are primarily pollinated by birds, especially birds of paradise. After these plants bloom a single time, they die off to allow for the next generation of plants to grow near or on top of the place they once lay, allowing for less competition between older and younger members of the same species. Impenetrable is another plant found in the rainforest, a freestanding palmetto descendant that also thrives across the savanna. Large stands of these trees can be found in congregations around rivers and other bodies of water, and are a sanctuary for smaller animals. They are dangerous for large animals to approach, as their leaves are tough and extremely sharp, being able to cut up an animal that attempts to walk through them. However, smaller species can find safe haven, having more space to avoid the deadly blades of impenetrable. Towering orange is another large tree within the region, with much of their success attributing to their history as a domestic plant. Their fruits are extremely rich in sugars and other nutrients compared to wild fruits, and without human farmers, they'll be prime selection for fruit-eating animals. Being the preferred food for so many species, their seeds travel far, and their population remains diverse and ever-present on the landscape. They are shorter than skyscrapers, but are still considerable, thick trees. Being angiosperms, they flower before they produce fruits. But given they are in a tropical environment with year-round temperatures and rainfall, they flower every few months once they hit a certain size. The jungle sundew evolved to adapt for the more wet conditions of the rainforest. They have longer leaves and waxier cuticles to repel excess water. Their red leaves and sweet smell attract unsuspecting prey, and when caught, the plant, much like its ancestor, will slowly wrap around the target whilst the struggling animal is stuck in its sticky leaves. Eventually, the animal will either be suffocated or die from exhaustion, and will be digested. This plant is obviously a carnivore, and a prolific one at that. When they are large enough, even vertebrates such as small lizards are on their menu. Hairy-leaved milkvine is a plant that has adapted for being an obligate epiphyte, only being found on the tops of trunks of trees, in similar locations to where colonies of false hornets are built. They are pollinated exclusively by these flying ants, and their seeds are dispersed by wind from one tree trunk to another. These plants grow slowly and only bloom in specific conditions, such as the short period of dry weather or a sudden change in light levels. Giant weeper is a willow descendant found alongside the coasts of this rainforest, taking a similar role to mangroves, but growing massively in size. They have large amounts of buttress roots that split and hold the plant in shallow places of salt or brackish water. They evolved salt tolerance and use excess salt in their leaves, making them unappealing for most herbivores. The lower gravity of Parias, about 90% that of Earth, allows these massive trees to function a similar role to the smaller mangroves of Earth, and without those plants around, these plants have taken their niche. Some insects actually specialized in eating the leaves of giant weepers, primarily insect species that use the increased amount of salt into specialized organs that make consuming them a rather unpleasant snack for predators. The tuber mimic mushroom and common cap have been described before in previous episodes, alongside sap creep. Tuber mimics are known for their large, tuber-like organs found within the dirt. Common cap is an adaptable fungus, primarily known for its connective ability with other plants and fungi in the region, distributing and sharing what little nutrients can be found in the jungle soil. Sap creep primarily does its job in clearing the forest of dead and dying trees. All of these fungi are adaptable enough to be found almost everywhere in this continent, if enough rainfall is met, of course. Beret mushrooms, however, is the native fungus in the region and has a very interesting reproductive strategy. This fungus, like most other fungi, live most of their lifespans underground and produce a fruiting body during its reproductive stage. And the beret mushroom goes out of its way to be eaten. When an animal eats the mushroom, the small yet durable spores end up in the mouths or digestive system of the animal. They embed into the digestive tract, and when the animal they hitch a ride on dies, they start their next generation with a feast below them. An infection from this fungus doesn't usually result in a lot of negative symptoms, but overconsumption of this mushroom can cause oral pain due to tons of spores embedding between teeth, in gums, and underneath tongues. Given how much rain falls in this region, bodies of water are incredibly common. Lazy deltas that spread out into the sea under the protection of giant weepers, rivers surrounded by stands of impenetrable, and massive lakes that feed both. All of this makes prime real estate for aquatic organisms, many of which can also be found out at sea for some parts of their life stage. This environment is free from some pelagic oceanic predators, but is full of new threats instead. Castle sponge is an animal found alongside the deltas of the rainforest. They feed on the algae in the water, alongside diatoms and other microscopic organisms. They also will take any food particles that fall into the water from carrion if given the chance. This sponge largely produces asexually and keeps the waters very clean. Making up for clearing murkiness, their bodies are a harbor for animals that hide within stands of sponge. They attach to rocks and roots in estuarine environments, not thriving in purely freshwater ecosystems. These are safe havens for the juveniles of many marine and riverine species in the region, and is thus rich in diversity. Cuttle spear are a cuttlefish descendant that is specialized in being ambush hunters. The deltas of this environment are rather clear due to sponge activity. So how can this animal hide? In plain sight. They have some of the best chromatophores on the planet, specialized cells in their bodies that make them change the color and texture of their skin in a near instant. They use this ability to hide in places where prey come around, and use their large arms lined with sharp spikes to spear and butcher their prey. They can also use them in defense against predators, but they prefer to flee and not fight. Cuttle spears are sexually dimorphic, with females much larger than males. Males have to impress mates with colorful displays, and if he doesn't please his would-be mate, he will be preyed upon by the female instead. Males only reproduce for one cycle in their lives, entering senescence after mating. Females will then find a safe spot to care for her eggs, but will mate a few more times in her life before she passes, not laying all her eggs in one basket. The giant weepers are a key home for the biscuit monitor. These semi-aquatic generalists will eat anything they can catch, and are notable for their high salt tolerance. To get rid of excess salt, they will spit it out of a specialized organ that holds this compound. They can spit at threats when they feel threatened, as their spit can be irritating to the eyes and mouth of other organisms, including conspecifics. They get their name from their warm, biscuit-colored scales. They are also known for occasionally going out to sea to find food, preferring to tear small chunks out of large fish. Yellowfin mussels and gravelfish have a bizarre symbiosis that involves mutual parasitism. Both the gravelfish and yellowfin mussels have very vulnerable young, and both are common prey items for a ton of other animals in these waters. The solution these animals reached was a form of simulparity, where they placed the eggs into each other. Yellowfin mussels will drop their eggs in the gills of gravelfish, and the gravelfish do the same to yellowfin. This strategy may seem gross and counterintuitive, but there is a reproductive advantage here. Their most vulnerable life stage is protected by the other animal, and since both animals are simulparous, they die shortly after mating anyways. Eventually, as these animals shut down and pass on, their bodies are used as incubators for the next generations of gravelfish and yellowfin mussels. When the young emerge from the bodies of the incubating host species, they come out in massive numbers and relatively large compared to the fry and juvenile of other fish. The giant sausage worm is a large annelid that can sometimes be found in bodies of water and mistaken for eels. They are primarily found underground, up to 4 meters into the soil. They are a useful species in the rainforest, churning up massive amounts of soil in their lifetimes. Given Parias has a young history as a planet with life on it, soft soil is in less common supply, so organisms that churn it and bring new life to the organic material are essential. Many plants are primary successors, but they are assisted by organisms such as these giant worms. These worms use their size to deter predators, but they are quite vulnerable in their juvenile stage. When they are around the size of their ancestral form, they can get up to 1 meter long and have extra pores on their sides to get rid of excess water if their tunnels ever flood. Mimicking bog leech is a worm-like leech that has evolved a unique form of mimicry. Their tails resemble juvenile giant sausage worms, and their bodies are more drab, brown color to hide on the floor or a body of water. This leech, instead of going out of its way to feed, waits for its prey to come to it, Once the bog leech is eaten by a would-be predator, it begins to feed on the inside of the mouth, extracting blood from gills and tongues. They then hide in the mouth of their host, waiting for an opportunity to break free. The Lucindan tropical moray and tapirfish reside in these rivers at some point in their life cycles, but they do not live here in the rainforest for their entire lives. Tropical morays spend some of their life at sea, and tapirfish are largely freshwater exclusive. Lucindan tropical moray are notable for their ability to enter dry land for a short period of time, and tapirfish are notable for their suction feeding and ability to spit out water at an immense force, revealing the hiding spots of prey on the bottom of rivers. Tapirfish can also push prey out of hiding spots in the sponge reefs and eat them. The green crappie is a medium-sized generalist that can be found in the green sponge reefs. They can get over a foot long and lay thousands of eggs within the sponges that they reside within. They can eat anything that they catch, including smaller members of their own species. They have evolved a green color pattern to blend into their spongy homes, but can also be found in places without sponge due to how murky the waters can be in the jungle. Iranian giant shoebills hunt here for part of the year, but prefer to nest on a faraway island free from predators. Here, they feast on fish and small reptiles, and fly back over the sea to lay eggs and raise young. Their massive size makes them imposing threats, but they primarily target small prey items instead of larger ones, and can fall prey to other animals from time to time themselves. They are some of the largest flying animals of their day, reaching the maximum size that a bird can reach while still being able to fly in their largest specimens. The golden Titan minnow is a large predatory fish that has evolved to be a prolific ambush predator. They can grow up to 5 meters in length and are built like a living torpedo. They have some of the best eyes on a fish in this rainforest, using their excellent vision to look out for prey out of the water. They can jump entire meters out of the water and catch birds mid-air, and are also more willing to consume any prey items they can fit in their mouths. Titan minnow tend to avoid alligators, which are their most dangerous competition in the water. Adults are usually safe from attack, able to defend themselves on their bulk, speed, and ferocity. But all of this takes years to grow. These fish do not stay with their eggs for long after laying them in gravel on the bottom of rivers and lakes, but can lay up to 40,000 eggs per breeding season, the vast majority of which never reach breeding age of around 3 to 5 Parian years. Electric sharks are an angel shark descendant that has adapted their electrosense organs into a weapon for both defense and hunting. They lay their flat bodies on the beds of rivers, waiting for fish or other small vertebrates to pass them. Once they find their prey, they strike and send over 400 volts of electricity into it. If the electric shock doesn't stop their prey's heart, they are stunned for long enough to be eaten alive with little chance of escape. They are only around 2 meters long as adults, much smaller in size compared to the Titan minnow and alligator species in the rainforest, but they can use their electricity to defend themselves from much larger potential threats. Because of how dangerous they are usually avoided when fully grown. They give birth to 9 to 18 pups per litter, each of them born with the ability to shock. The Gualgana is an alligator descendant that has taken the lifestyle of a caiman, not much changing in their body size, but becoming more aquadynamic to hunt fish. They will ambush terrestrial prey if given the chance, but they are more likely to snap at a crappie than they are to lunge for a lizard. They are larger here than in the savanna, but are limited in size due to competition from all the other aquatic ambush predators in the region. Gualgana are pretty decent parents in comparison to their other aquatic competitors, with the mothers of the species frequently protective of their nests. They will only breed every other year, so they can build enough fat reserves to watch her young without eating for months and months on end. When the young reptiles leave their mother, they are large enough to hunt successfully on their own, and will thus more likely than not reach adulthood. The northern cricket frogs are a semi-aquatic species that eat ants by the mouthful. They resemble crickets in their super long legs, allowing them to jump away from threats at massive distances. The lower gravity of Parias also assists in their long jumps, usually getting them out of trouble if a hungry bird spots them. They are found across the continent and love the hot temperatures of the savanna of isolation and the Lapis Coast rainforest. The ollie-rollie is an aquatic amphibian, a neotenic salamander that never leaves the water when it matures. They resemble axolotls with complex green and brown patterns that help them camouflage against the tropical waters of the jungle. They have reduced their hind limbs into nubs, their forelimbs used for assistance in prey capture. They primarily use their tails for propulsion and hunt small prey like tadpoles, small fish, and insect larvae. Their bodies also have lots of bizarre tendrils that befuddle their shape from the perspective of a potential predator. The moss tadpole is a similarly neotenic frog that is specialized to eat foliage. They eat algae and moss that finds itself underwater, cleaning the waterways. They survive off sheer numbers, foregoing their ability to metamorphose and instead investing in more egg and sperm production. They can get up to half a foot long, but usually are much smaller in size. These tadpoles are a common prey item for many species in the rainforest, especially within the water. The Lucindo pegafly is a large Idiroparus dragonfly descendant that spends major time as a nymph, catching small fish, eggs, and other bug larvae. As adults, they only live for a year or so, in which they spend that time breeding and laying as many eggs as possible. They spend a few Parian years as nymphs or aquatic larvae before they transform into their adult stage. Nymphs use their raptorial appendages to capture prey and grab food particles, but they are defenseless against creatures larger than they are, with many pegafly larvae being a source of food for juvenile fish and gualganas. The strife bear is a semi-aquatic predator, eating fish, meat, and fruits. They have evolved a bulkier body built for tackling prey and tearing it apart alive. They have massive guts that allow them to digest almost anything they can gain access to. They do not climb trees as adults, but readily do so as young. They give birth to 1 to 3 cubs per litter, and will follow their mother for quite a considerable amount of time before they go off to live solitary lives. They can reach up to 3 meters long and almost 500 kilograms in weight. These bears are territorial, roaring in loud volumes to mark their strength to conspecifics, and these calls are a common noise to hear at dusk every night in the jungle, should there be no storms to dampen the calls. Green-bearded hornster are a capybara descendant that has evolved horns that resemble driftwood. They grow in unique patterns based on the individual, with males and females growing them at about the same length and speed. These hornsters are also coated by moss and algae in occasion, giving them a greenish color that assists in camouflage. Besides that, they live in massive congregations and survive off of herd immunity. These herds are incredibly promiscuous, with green-bearded hornster males and females mating multiple times per day per breeding season, and each member of a litter, more often than not, have different fathers. Green-bearded hornsters are incredible parents, with individuals coming to the defense of juveniles that they don't even know, and females nurturing offspring that aren't their own biologically. These animals love to bask in the sun and have a rather mild disposition. The Parian spotted salamanders have adapted a completely different life history, adapted for eating bugs and worms in the soil. The female Parian spotted salamanders lay their eggs with a protective casing of goo, which stays wet enough for young to survive out of water. They hatch tiny in size, but the same shape and proportion of adults, completely foregoing their evolutionary history as semi-aquatic animals. They take their chances on the forest floor rather than in the dangerous waters. Turum antelope are one of the largest species of animal that can be found in the region. They can reach heights of up to 4 meters and eat leaves and moss. They will carve pathways through the jungle that other animals will regularly use, essentially becoming natural tunnels in the darkness. As adults, they have few threats, but don't live in total comfort. Many animals here are crazy enough to try to take them down, even in a context where all they can do is fight instead of flee. Wall crabs are adept scavengers. They move slowly and have evolved massive front claws that act like a shield against threats. If threatened, they will back up to a place where their other legs are hidden, showing only their tough shield exoskeleton. They are terrestrial as adults, and only lay eggs in shallow ocean water. When they reproduce, they do so in massive numbers on the coasts. Their colorful exoskeletons making vibrant displays of color. While flashy, this also confuses predators that try to use this mating ritual to their advantage. The Swiss cheese slug is an adaptable protist. Despite the name, this organism is more closely related to a slime mold than it is a slug. This protist has evolved an animal-like body plan, with specialized cells that take on specialized roles. One of the things that makes this organism unique is how the mold can change the cells of its body into fitting different roles if needed. This massive amount of phenotypic plasticity within a single individual and its adaptable diet make it an incredibly common sight in the underbrush of northern Lucindo. The tarantula is another predatory spider species, taking on bizarre proportions to become more successful hunters. They eat anything they can catch, but prefer to hunt in low light conditions. The forest floor is a perfect place for them, as some places can be dark as night all day long. They are large, going up to 30 centimeters in leg span. They run after prey and tear them apart, using their raptorial forearms to keep them in place, and their powerful chelicerae tear their prey apart alive, letting shock and blood loss do its work. Lock-necked gophers, or tortoise descendants, evolved for plenty of hot climates across the western continent. Jungle populations tend to be smaller in size and covered in green moss that they can use as an extra layer of protection. They dig plenty of burrows throughout their lifetime, which makes them nice places to live for other organisms when they move out to keep eating. They can hold their breath long enough to exit their tunnels during a flood, which is their most dangerous threat in the rainforest. The antler-legged beetle is another species found in the rainforest, and are another key species that eats decomposing wood. Their larvae can be found in the billions on a fallen skyscraper tree, becoming a food source in themselves, taking the nutrients found in the wood and returning them back into the ecosystem. As adults, they mainly eat mushrooms and other fungi. There's an extreme level of sexual dimorphism between males and females, with males having large front legs that they use to fight other males with. Male beetles are fiercely territorial for portions of fallen trees, using this prime real estate as the best place for females to lay eggs. Males fight for the best spots, with these confrontations being dangerous ordeals for the small creatures. Creepback hare are a bizarre rabbit descendant that has evolved a symbiotic relationship with a fungus. This species is related to the beret mushroom, but has some unique traits. This fungus is dependent on the rabbit for its survival, living within its skin, but it functions as a form of grotesque protection. Skin creep provides protection against the creepback's predators, and also keeps their host free of other parasites and fungi. Skin creep is a highly toxic fungus that the creepback is itself immune to, and they grow this fungus as they mature. How toxic are these animals? They have enough poison to take down multiple gualgana, and as mature adults, they obviously don't fear much. However, the young specimens of this species are the most vulnerable. Their fungus takes a long time to cultivate after being coated by their parents, and during that time they are vulnerable to parasites and predators. When these animals die, the fungus returns to being a scavenger, turning the body into a breeding ground for skin creep to fruit and spread spores. Creepback are drawn to these macabre scenes, supplementing their fungal symbionts with the genetic material of others of its species. Skin creep also gains in this relationship with more successful reproductive rates, as their animal hosts will carry them from breeding opportunity to breeding opportunity. Honeycomb ants are a species of yellow crazy ant descendant that grow rather large and are quite specialized. Queens will live together in supercolonies, but each queen doesn't produce as many eggs individually. They harvest tree sap and build honeycombs in subterranean nests out of mud. Each queen only has a few hundred ants at a time, but for them, it's more than enough to get the job done. Honeycomb ants aren't the most aggressive towards conspecifics, especially as they are in a rather specialized, non-competitive niche. But they don't build nests that are too large, as they would only invite feeding frenzies from insectivores. Cultist ants are another species that is ever present in the region. They are tiny in size, but mighty in number. Many queens will exist within supercolonies, like their close relatives in the honeycomb ant, but each queen will have hundreds of thousands of their own workers, maybe even over 1 million each. Working with such insane numbers, these supercolonies can cause major damage to any threat that might come across them. They live in complicated nests that connect underground, allowing for constant connection between neighboring queens. The ant slasher is an armadillo descendant that has evolved to specialize in eating ants. With a long tongue to lap up ants in massive numbers, they can tear into nests and take the nutrients they desire. They can walk bipedally for a short period of time, keeping their claws super sharp. They also have a long, counterbalancing armored tail, and also acts as a tough whip when they are attacked by a predator, a similar defense strategy seen by some other animals in the savanna of isolation. Lionbird of paradise is a flightless bird that has a dense coat of feathers. They eat mostly at night, and eat fallen fruits, flowers, moss, etc. But they will also eat carrion and small animals when given the opportunity. They use their loose skin and dense feathers to increase their chances of survival when they encounter a predator. They also use sharp claws on their feet to attack predators, their fight-or-flight mode devolving primarily into fight mode. Males and females of this species are sexually dimorphic, with males being larger in size and holding territory. For lion birds, the male is the primary caregiver of the chicks, who stay with him until reaching adulthood. Monosui are a bipedal rodent that are also found in the savanna of isolation as well. They prefer to be active at night, with dark fur helping them blend into the darkness. In the jungles, these animals primarily eat fruit, but will also eat meat and eggs when given the chance. They can use their forelimbs to grab food items and bring to more safe locations to feast. They will dig burrows underneath large trees, too small for other large animals to enter. They will mob burrow raiders if cornered, as places like this are where Monosui defend their young. Bald-faced elahog are gargantuan pig descendants that grow to around 3 meters in height and weigh in at an average of 4 tons as adults. These giant pigs are another keystone species, and with the Turim antelope, they shape the pathways of the rainforest. Elahog are mostly herbivores, eating leaves and underground sources of food such as roots, tubers, and fungi. They are born with hair on their faces, but a lifetime of friction will wear their heads bald and calloused. They have evolved a set of tusks that constantly grow straight towards the ground. Uprooting trees and other items, they churn the soil and set the perfect ground for new plants to grow, with their nutritional dung returning energy back into the forest. Elahog live in lifelong monogamous pairs, but these parents are very territorial. Fewer contests are as frightening in these jungles as an elahog clash. Elahogs will raise 1 to 2 piglets per litter and breed only every 3 years. Older juvenile elahogs will learn parenting skills by assisting the parents with their younger siblings, before being kicked out at around the age of 10. They can live well into their 70s and do not choose a new mate should their partner die. Adults at this size should have little to fear, especially when healthy, but sick and elderly individuals of the species are of course vulnerable to bear attack. Shili are a myrmecovorous specialist, with a long tongue to lap up ants. They are the only animals that will go out of their way to eat toxic animals, as they will use those toxins to build up their own. They walk around on 2 legs for more efficient movement, the lower gravity of the planet making a more easy transition. They use their freed up forearms to gash open ant mounds, although more often than not, they prefer to follow around ant slashers to do the dirty work, and then come in afterwards to feast. They have feather-like structures that are used to hide on the forest floor, and a toxic bite to punish any animal that didn't see their disguise. Deer rats are rodents that are more basal in shape compared to the species like the monosui, but prominent in number. Maxing out at about 5 to 6 kilograms, this mouse has long legs and uses them to run from predators. With long claws, they are also semi-arboreal, choosing to run up trees if pursued by a predator that can't shake. The crimson jewelfly, leafwing, and gloomy butterfly are the most common butterfly species in the tropical rainforest, found across northern Lucindo as well. They specialized into separate niches and separate survival strategies for both adults and caterpillars of this group. As all three of which were mentioned before in the last episode, we won't be going into too much detail over them individually, but they are all key pollinators or scavengers, making the rainforest stronger with their presence. They are also consumed by the bounty of arboreal and flying predators bound to this land, so many of these butterflies survive off of sheer number alone. The rust-wing frog has evolved long fingers with a patagium that stretches between. They can get up to 2 meters off the ground with a jump, after which they remain airborne for a short period of time. They have not evolved true flight yet, as they cannot fly for long distances due to their exothermy and suboptimal lung capacity. Despite not being true flyers, they are true hunters. They can pursue flying insects and false hornets, gliding with a rapid speed. These frogs will have the males brood the young in his mouth until they are ready, to which they are dropped off as froglets on different tree patches. They look like tree frogs as juveniles, growing their massive fingers and wings as adults. The black false quoll is an opossum descendant that has taken a niche similar to small cats on Earth. They have dark fur that is very sparse, especially on their tails. Underneath their black fur is a grayish-pink skin, which they keep clean to avoid the high number of parasites in the region. Maxing out at about 40 kilograms as adults, they are nocturnal hunters, using their strong senses of smell and sight to capture prey. They primarily crush the windpipe of their mammalian prey, but they eat birds and large insects as well. They are semi-arboreal, hunting on the forest floor and occasionally in the trees, as they nest and rest higher up the understory. These animals live longer than their ancestors and are extremely protective parents. They give birth to about half a dozen joeys, and they emerge from their mother when they outgrow the pouch. Ruby rose-tailed rattlesnakes are experts at offensive mimicry. Their tails have evolved to resemble a rose, and their body the viney appearance of rosevine. Their bodies are green and have spots on their scales that look like thorns. They will hide and wait for long periods of time before attacking small mammals, birds, and flying insects. They have a very potent venom that they use to dispatch prey, but they have foregone the ability to effectively rattle their tail, otherwise it would break their disguise. The Lucindan indomitor is a large reptile evolved for hunting large game. They have a venomous bite and are known to mob large prey items that are in distress. Besides this mobbing behavior, indomitors live solo, only congregating to eat or mate. Female indomitors lay 20 to 30 eggs per season, dropping their eggs off in batches of 5 across their territory, which she will check in on until they hatch. Hatchling indomitors are vulnerable on the forest floor, so they climb into the understory and live as arboreal ambush predators. Once they become larger, they move down to the forest floor to hunt, and eventually enter the water as fully grown, semi-aquatic creatures. Lucindo indomitors have eye spot patterns that are unique to every individual, and they perform complicated dances to court mates. Armorworm is a legless lizard descendant that has evolved strong protective bands to keep themselves safe from predators. These derived scales are found on the back of the animal, which curls into a ball to protect themselves. They are insectivores, with strong jaws that they use to break open tree bark to find and eat beetle larvae. They will also eat fruit and carrion, but prefer to eat beetles. The false rails, dutes, and moorducks and Parias crates are migratory birds that are generalists, eating everything from worms to fruits. As these birds have been mentioned numerous times before in this series so far, it's likely they would be mentioned again here. In this region, they nest in the understory as the ground is too dangerous, and the highest canopies are defended vigorously by local bird species, forcing these ducks to roost further below the prime nesting real estate. A predatory bird resides in the lower trees, the hookbill stork. Given the lack of other avian predators, this animal has taken the niche of bird-eating specialists. They have rounded wings that allow them to pursue prey with unparalleled agility and precision. Their muscular legs are lined with sharp zygodactyl talons, perfect for tearing apart their prey whole, as well as getting a good distance off the ground before they even have to start flapping their wings. After catching and dispatching their prey, they will fly their catch back to a safe place to consume, and often cache the indigestible parts for nest building. Hookbill stork mate for life, and a long lifespan with nest-building behaviors allows for absurdly large nests in mature hookbill couples. Social hornbills are a raven descendant that are special for building massive colonies that consist of many monogamous pairs and their young. They only lay 1 to 2 eggs per season and roost in massive colonies on oceanic cliffsides. They are intelligent generalists, able to form complex nests using fallen branches and leaves, and cooperate with others of their species to build and maintain structures in the colonies. The males have a U-shaped protrusion on their heads, and females have less pronounced structures. In this species, males disperse from their natal colony and move to another at some point in their life, and this entire species' adult populations can be found within a few hundred concentrated colonies, thousands or perhaps even tens of thousands strong. Effective communicators, they use complex vocalizations to warn others of predators, including how many and what kind of predator, and where the good food is at. The Cephalica frog is the closest living relative to the copperwing, and they have a gliding surface on their hands that allows them to jump from the canopy to eat flying insects. They sometimes will jump onto a false hornet nest and lap up hundreds of angry attackers, before jumping and gliding away like nothing happened. These animals are fairly basal compared to their more flighted relatives. However, they both share a common trait with their greater sense of parental care. Males will brood the fertilized eggs in his mouth for a long time, keeping them safe as he undergoes a weeks-long fast, before the young hatch as small froglets within the mouth of their father before being dropped off to fend for themselves. They live high in the trees and are rarely found on the forest floor. The elegant turret head is a highly toxic amphibian that is also an arboreal species. They are a vibrant red color and primarily hunt at night. They have this red color in aposematic patterns, as they have a unique weapon that makes them dangerous to predators. To deter animals from eating them, they have pores on their faces full of toxic mucus. Due to complex facial muscles, they can fire this poisonous glue with impressive accuracy. They mainly hunt insects, but will attack small birds when given the opportunity, and are prolific nest raiders. Altar beetles have evolved a unique method to compete with all the other arthropods within the region. These beetles will bore wood as juveniles, preferring healthy trees over weak ones. Eventually, males will pupate and emerge as adult beetles, but when females pupate, they emerge in a neotenic larval-like state. Female beetles will drink up sap and eat wood their entire lives, staying within the nest that they were placed in. But males, in comparison, are generalist, eating fruit and flesh alike. Males will store extra nutrients to give to females that they desire to mate with, and if accepted, the female will soon lay fertilized eggs on the male, who is responsible for finding good wooded areas for his offspring. As females live a more sedentary life, they will often live much longer than the males, and are visited numerous times in their lifespan. The giant leaf spider is a pursuit predator that gets its name from its large size, rivaling the Goliath bird eater in size. They are a monogamous species, hunting in pairs to capture prey. They eat insects and frogs, and sometimes small mammals and birds when given the opportunity. They build their nests high up in the understory, using a specialized glue to keep their nests together. Sometimes they will jump after flying prey, which is a dangerous gamble, but can often pay off well. They aren't venomous enough to take down large animals, but they can usually dispatch prey of their size or smaller within a bite or two. Jade assassin centipedes are specialized ambush predators for flying creatures. They eat false hornets, butterflies, and small birds. Their green coloration makes them masters of camouflage, and they can lie in wait for days without moving before striking against their prey. While they are not a big species in weight, they are very, very long. This length helps them reach out from a branch to attack a prey item. Armadillos are an arboreal armadillo species that are related to the ant slashers found on the ground floor. They have long claws that help them climb trees, and they spend their time meandering towards prey. They eat arboreal insects and particularly enjoy raiding the nests of false hornets. They will also pick at parasitic beetles in trees, keeping the number of those animals in check. They are fairly territorial and are not fond of others of their species. They clamber slowly and deliberately on trees, their long tails wrapping around branches and small trunks if the tree is small enough. Amethyst false hornets are a prominent species of flying eusocial insect. As they are ants, they aren't closely related to hornets, hence the name. They build paper nests in trees, which can end up becoming massive in size. They have aposematic colorations as they are poisonous and like to advertise their toxicity to other animals. Colonies can be tens of thousands strong and are supported by a single breeding queen. They are generalists, using their numbers to overwhelm threats and bring food back to the colony. Crimson stingmouth are a species of skink that evolved to mimic the aposematic coloration of the turret-head salamander. Both species are toxic in their own ways, with the stingmouth having venomous saliva that is passed into their prey when they land a bite. They have an excellent sense of smell, which is what they use their venom for. Oftentimes, they will bite and release an animal, just to follow its target to a more safe location to dispatch and consume. To avoid competition with other arboreal ambush predators, these animals target small prey, eggs, and insects, and prefer to hunt at dawn and dusk. Indigo stingmouth is another species of skink that has adapted to be a small herbivore. They are facultative bipeds, running on 2 legs away from predators when on the ground, and they have a defensive venom that they use on smaller predators. Like the crimson stingmouth and turrethead, they are part of the same mimicry ring, all with red bodies and indigo heads, and all of these animals use these colors to deter predators from eating them. The indigo stingmouth eats leaves, fruits, and flowers, and prefer to hide in abandoned lock-necked gopher nests when they are not feeding. Yellow mafia sparrows are tiny birds that eat fruits, seeds, and ants. They have the highest tolerance for fermented oranges in the region, being the toughest heavyweights by body mass on the continent. They may be small, but they are known to use their numbers to their advantage, mobbing threats in the area with almost reckless abandon. Herbivorous and insectivorous birds will often allow these birds to nest near them, the protection being a nice addition to their safety. The mafia sparrows sometimes snatch an egg every now and then, but hey, that's the cost of protection. These birds have short lifespans and lay lots of eggs for a bird, so juvenile mafia sparrows are rather precocial, being able to live on their own just a month after they hatch. The twig-armed beetle is a canopy specialist. They live life slow. As adults, they eat only leaves and flower buds, and use woody camouflage to hide from predators. They spend their entire lives in the trees. Even as larvae, they are wood-eating specialists. They will then pupate and emerge from the tree as an adult, where they then proceed to crawl up into the canopy. Twig-armed beetles only return to the lower sections of the forest to lay eggs, after which they will return to the canopy to keep eating on leaves. Neapolitan parasol tail are specialized frugivores. They maintain the impenetrable forests, spreading their small fruits while they patrol their territories. They don't eat fruit exclusively, needing to supplement their diet with leaves, roots, and insects. Their beaks are tough enough to bore into bark, including into the impenetrable wood, where they can root out parasitic insects. Gray-vested apartment ravens are intelligent generalists that use tools to build massive communal nests in the tops of trees. A group of apartment ravens are called a complex, and a complex can consist of over a dozen breeding pairs. They eat practically everything they can find, being rather non-picky. They are intelligent enough to cultivate common cap mushrooms in their complexes as an additional source of food. These ravens will raise the chicks communally and have rather long lifespans. In apartment raven society, they are matriarchal, and males disperse to new complexes. Sometimes females that are rejected will start building a new complex with young males, but this is a rare occurrence. Females have a dominance hierarchy, with the eldest female raven being the dominant one. and males share the rank of their mate. The tick moth is a moth that has adapted to be a blood-drinking parasite. During its juvenile life stage, it remains a small drab color and specializes in drinking the blood of birds. Their little fuzz gets stuck between feathers, making them harder to remove by beak. Eventually, when the tick moth has drunk enough blood, they will wander away from their host and then form a cocoon and merge as adults. Adults are more generalistic, drinking nectar more often than drinking blood. But if fruits are scarce, they will supplement their nutritional needs with nighttime feast. They will lay eggs on the backs of birds or within their nests. This tick moth is such a prevalent pest that birds will present themselves to chariter lizards, specialized insectivores that will clean the birds of their parasites. Charitor are monitor lizards that evolved high up in the trees. They have evolved feather-like filaments in a convergent fashion to birds, albeit in a less derived sense. Their bodies are small, and they have a nice role in the ecosystem as a parasite cleaner. They are regularly welcomed into bird nests, as these animals don't have the teeth to eat anything larger than insects, and are rarely predated upon by birds as a result. They are typically the prey of other lizards and occasionally large spiders. They have a compound in their saliva that acts like a natural band-aid, reducing infection in their host birds. The fireback is their favorite birds to clean, as these birds are welcoming of their monitor guests. They will even take juveniles on their backs as they fly to new places, assisting in the dispersal of their species. Fireback garden birds are another bird of paradise descendant that has evolved to be a generalist. Males have bizarre golden feathers on their back, which they use to attract mates. They eat fruits, leaves, and insects, and are found across multiple tropical regions of Parias. They aren't the best flyers, but populations of the species can be found mysteriously on islands hundreds of kilometers away. Leaf-tailed mink are an arboreal lizard that eats fruit and seeds in the canopy. Using a derived egg tooth, they crack into fruit before consumption. They are primarily found in the canopy and are largely frugivorous. They have long tongues that are used to lap up fruit juice, as well as eating bugs to make up for their lack of protein in their diet. They are orange and green in color, helping them hide among their favorite trees and fruits, that being oranges. Males tend to be more colorful than females. This display can also double as protection against an inexperienced avian predator, distracting them with a bright flash of color before ducking below into the canopy. Floral birds of paradise are the primary pollinator species of orange and other angiosperms in the region, with their favorite species being the giant birdflower. They are small in size but massive in population, and are a common prey item. Males have undergone peacock levels of Fisherian runaway, as females select their mate based on how long and elegant their tail feathers are. This means that males of this species have poor survival rates, but the ones that do survive demonstrate their fitness by their sheer will to continue, despite all the predators great and small in the forest, and their inherited disability. Tree worms are closely related to the armor worms of the understory, and these animals are specialized folivores. They eat almost exclusively leaves, and more slowly and deliberately move among the trees. Having gut bacteria that are extremely efficient at breaking down the nutrients found in leaves, these animals can thrive off of such a strange diet. They can get up to 3 meters long, but they use camouflage and their slow bodies to hide from predators. Their large size allows them to defend themselves against smaller threats, and they have a long, prehensile tail that they use to attach safely to tree branches. The harpel is a large flying bird that is an agile aerial hunter. To differentiate themselves from hookbill storks, they prefer to hunt amongst the canopy and understory, and hookbill storks prefer to hunt on the ground and understory. They do not like to share territories and will harass each other as they often compete for the same prey. Harpels have excellent vision and use it to hunt targets in the canopy. They are monogamous and build more modest nests high up in the canopy. The harpel is intelligent and are an animal that preys upon adult creepback hare. They are able to pick open the parts that aren't toxic and feast. Different populations of harpel specialize for hunting specific prey, and these populations regularly change over time as populations wane and ebb. The Lucindo lying bird is a mimic. They will mimic the calls of other animals, such as small birds, reptiles, and rodents, but will then strike on silent wings. They are humble in size, being about the size of a blue jay and silver in color. They make up for their small size with their razor-sharp beak and specialized feathers that make them almost completely silent, besides their mimicking calls. They are famous for targeting prey larger than they are, like migratory ducks and social hornbills that flew too far away from their colonies. They will sometimes be preyed upon by other animals as well, given they are rather small. Snakes and harpels are their primary predators. They pair up for a mating season, but will leave each other after the offspring are able to care for themselves, otherwise living rather solitary lives. At long last, we have covered every single major region on the western continent of Parias. This concludes the first season of the show, and I am so proud of where we have come. I didn't think the project would get this far, but here we are. Season 2 will go another 5 million years into Parias' future, 10 million Parian years after abandonment from the human colonists, and we will delve into the ocean biomes of this world. Thank you so much for listening and supporting me for all these years, and I will hope to wrap up this project in a few years as well. If you would like to help out and see these episodes be released faster, join the Discord server. You can help add art to this project to speed up how often these episodes come out. College is in full swing for me right now, but I will work on the scripts for every episode of Season 2 ahead of time. I'll be gone for a few weeks or months again, making some other content in between and taking a short break from Parias. If you want to see this project to the end, make sure to also subscribe and share this video to people who may be interested. If more people support this content, I can reach out to people and have the funds to commission artists. But once again, thank you so much for watching, especially for watching all the way to the end, and I'll be back soon. Have a good one.